Welcome to the Doc B podcast. I'm Aaron Cook, Director of Program Evaluation here in Clovis Unified, and I'm excited to introduce our very first guest, our Superintendent, Dr. Corrine Folmer. Dr. Folmer leads with the belief that students are at the center of every decision we make, and through them, our entire community is woven together. Under her leadership, Clovis Unified continues to set high standards, operate with transparency, and pour our very best into nearly 44,000 students and the families we serve. Today, as we kick off this podcast, we're going to take a more personal approach to who she is, what drives her, and how she sees our shared work in Clovis Unified. I'm honored that our first conversation is with our superintendent, Dr. Corrine Folmer. All right, here we go. I'm excited that Clovis Unified gets to hear some of your stories and that we all get to hear the stories from across the district. How do you feel about that?
There's little nuggets all over our district of people that just doesn't always matriculate out. It's just amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so excited that our listeners get to know a little bit more of you as a person, not just our superintendent. So what do you think? Let's start with a few questions to get warmed up. Speaking of warm, are you a coffee or a tea drinker?
Coffee. So really funny. I did not do a lot of caffeine until I became a learning director. And Janet Samuelian, who was a longtime kindergarten teacher in the district and an administrator, you've got to try this Starbucks one. You'll like it. And I think it was more sugar than coffee. But that was where the cycle started. And with each progressive, the coffee has gotten less sweet and just stronger.
Okay, so how about a favorite food?
I do have favorite food, which they kind of contradict. So I have a favorite snack that everyone teases me about, which is plantain chips. Love them. Healthier than a chip. It's a favorite go-to for me. But if I were to pick any food that I love, I actually got interviewed by some kindergartners and was very honest with them. Man, I love a really good taco. I'll do asada or I'll do any version of them, fish tacos, but just a really good taco. I like spicy, so it's got to have a little kick.
So I guess I imagine the answer is going to be no, but I'll ask anyways. Do you have a favorite television show that you get to binge watch?
Not really, probably because I just don't have the time. But I watched a few episodes that I like the main character of Madam Secretary. I don't even know how I landed on that, but there was something about, I think, her leadership, and there are parallels, right, to just leadership in general and the stressors she had and how it didn't always go right. And it was just, I don't know, there's something about watching it.
So let's get to some of the meat and the bones of who you are as the superintendent of Clovis Unified. So if you weren't an educator, if you hadn't become the superintendent, what career do you think you might have tried out?
Okay, that's interesting. So I'll give you two answers. I started out my college career not to be an educator. Started out to be a civil engineer due to some circumstances with how I was able to go to school, which was playing sport. At that time, the math and engineering department wouldn't work with a travel schedule. Couldn't make up assessments if I missed for a game out of town. So it was do what paid for school or change my major and found education. Never regretted it. But if I didn't do education, knowing now, having a bigger sense of jobs out there, I would definitely love to do something in the athletic arena, probably around marketing or mentorship of young athletes.
Can you walk us through how you first found your way into education? Was it related to athletics or was it strictly academic?
So I coached 7th grade all to Sierra, almost right after I graduated. And the 8th grade coach was Janine Soderston. She was a great mentor, and I had so much fun with the young ladies that I had the opportunity to coach and connecting with parents. I was super young myself, but that led me into being an instructional assistant at Buchanan High School. And I remember I pushed into several different classes, all math. That was my wheelhouse. And I ended up working with Mary Noga, and a class that was geared towards helping students pass assessments, because these were students who typically struggled, and we had different accountability assessments back then. And so I would sit and run small groups with her. She ran one, I ran one, like you would expect to see in an elementary classroom. And I just had so much fun. I don't even know if I knew that I was lighting up, but she one day just said, have you really considered your options? Because I watch you and I think you should go into education. So I just took a leap of faith. I'm grateful that Mary Noga planted the seed, but it really was an instructional assistant job. It was really fun to work with students and watch them have moments where they connect, build relationships, and no greater moment than when a student who wouldn't hardly talk to you at first and would come up and go, "Can you help me with this?"
Yeah, wow. Mary is a great example, and I'm sure she had similar impacts on others that call Clovis Unified home today. So, other than Mary, was there another teacher, a mentor, or another leader that had an impact on you?
I was blessed. I had some phenomenal coaches in my tenure at Clovis Unified. I had Marty Simpson, Brian Weaver, and Kathleen Gleason. They were all uniquely different, but what they all did was see potential and held a high standard, which is what we're about in Clovis. Now, as an adult, I see why they are the right people for the jobs that they had. But when you're a kid, you're like, gosh, they hold these high standards and they're pushing me so hard. But I wouldn't have been able to accomplish anything that I did if it hadn't been for their belief, their investment, and those things. When I think about education, and now I look back on a whole career, I've had a lot of mentors, but one that stands out really was Rosalie Baker. Rosalie was a champion for kids. She believed every kid can learn, and she was relentless in her pursuit of supporting staff in any way to make that come to reality. I had her as an assistant soup when I was a learning director, and then as a principal, and she pushed us like the coaches did, only they did it athletically. She was pushing me professionally to go out of a comfort zone, to take calculated risks if it was going to benefit kids, to not stop learning. I learned a lot from that because fear sometimes keeps us from taking risks that help us be better for our kids, our staffs, and our community. And she was an example of that. I credit her with a lot of the educational instructional knowledge I have. She was a true instructional leader. Came from Rome.
What moment in your career made you think, yep, this is why I'm in education. I made it. I'm glad I'm here. I certainly chose wisely. Tell us that story.
In all of our roles in education, there's this ebb and flow of seasons where they're tough and they're rewarding and they're tough. And so there's been all those moments, and they almost always seem perfectly planned when sometimes you go, gosh, and then you get that moment. And honestly, for me, the moments have mostly been captured in the smile of a kid. Something about their lighting up with something that they're doing that we've been able to provide, an interaction they're having, the light bulb moment we all know when a kid realizes, or the first time you get a head nod from a kid that just didn't want to acknowledge you for so long. All those moments are progress, and it always comes down to the relational side. I think that's what's kept me in it. The relational side of connecting. And I'll say this, it's a great privilege that we should never lose sight of, to have the opportunity to work with you. It's a privilege and an honor. It's hard work, but it really is. And then that same moment got fed in education through administration is when you get to connect with teachers, other staff, classify, just these people who pour into kids. That's affirming.
You've carried a lot of responsibility in every role you've had in Clovis Unified, from the classroom to leadership and now as superintendent. How has that sense of responsibility felt at each level, and what does that feel like now in this role?
It's interesting. I think some people go, gosh, your job, and that's just so much. I think it's so much at every level if we're doing it right. It's just scaled, right? For anyone who sits in the desk of the superintendent is dependent upon our entire team. And so everybody's role is so critical to the success of our kids. So I think in all the roles, everybody feels that responsibility and that pride and that commitment to being a part of something greater. I will say, you asked about my sleep. I sleep a lot less in this job. And that doesn't mean I didn't have other jobs that I lost sleep in, but our students and our incredible staff are always at the forefront of my mind. We have employees that show up every day for our kids, and they're going through their own challenges. We're close to 7,500 employees who care all across this district. And I'm just grateful. Like, it's an honor, but the responsibility I feel is I sleep a lot less. And mostly because I want to serve everyone well. I want to make sure that they know they're cared about, and I want them to know that it doesn't matter what role in our district, no one's forgotten in this district. We can't do what we do if it isn't for every one of them.
As you're describing that, I get this visual of a team Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I believe that is one of the most important aspects of our work, greats in our district and names that some of the new hires will never know. You look at Dr. Prandini, and he used to just talk about there's not a challenge not worthy of our talents. But he said worthy of our. It's always been the team. And it is the approach. I have the privilege of getting to interview teachers, administrators, full-time classified staff. And I always tell them, I may have the title superintendent, but I assure everybody there's not one person in this district that has all the answers. It's every one of us with our unique lens, with our diverse experiences, with the perspectives of the things that we bring to the table that push and make us better. And so Clovis Unified is team. I'd argue it's family. There's anything I wouldn't do for any one of our team members, and they're worth it. They're amazing.
Yeah, and that's what you would do for your own family, right? And I think about Doc Buchanan, what he was able to accomplish and the mission that he initiated. He created the 11 philosophies, and he was also able to speak to the masses because he was able to get to each school site and all the departments because we were a lot smaller back then.
I giggle because my greatest challenge is being visible. We're very big.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to get around to 6 high schools, 6 junior highs, 6 alt ed sites, 35 elementary schools. You're doing a good job. All right, so let's actually talk about his philosophies. Is there one philosophy that you can think of that especially resonates?
Gosh, all of the philosophies are important, and I think they work collectively in the culture that we take pride in Clovis Unified. If I have to pick one, maybe even from a parent lens, having gone through our system, is leading through relationships. And that's true of our students. It's true of all of our team members. It's true of our parents. They entrust us with their loved ones. My children spend more time with the Clovis Unified Village than they do at home. And so I really think it's the leading through relationships that I really value. I often say, always assume the best of intentions. Because leading through relationships is having conversations and building a rapport and assuming the best out of everyone, because the best is when we can take care of our kids and we grow our kids. But it doesn't always mean we're going to agree. I think that when we can build relationships and have honest conversations, those other philosophies start to come in. That's honestly what I believe sets our team apart.
I don't know if everyone understands the complexity of what a superintendent does. So if we zoom into a typical day, what are some of the things you're actually doing behind the scenes that people might be surprised to learn are part of the superintendent's job?
We just watched a video at general session, and this may get outdated for those that we interviewed kids, and one of the kids saw my picture, and she does a lot of boring paperwork. I thought, oh, he's not far off. No. The thing that I do that maybe people don't realize is I have to be present in moments. I work really hard to ensure that I find time to be out. We talked about the number of sites and trying to find the moments to be present. I'm grateful that anywhere I go in our organization, that people aren't shy to share what their experiences are, because it's really tough to sit and have to look at laws or policies or make decisions. If we don't know what it's like in each one of those spaces, it's tough to make good decisions. We're in a season of Clovis Unified's history that we haven't been in for a while, where there's a lot of construction. I've had to do a lot of reading on processes and procedures and regulations around some of the construction stuff. So I would say maybe the biggest thing is there's a lot of nighttime reading. I read everything every applicant that I interview submits. So there's just a lot of reading, but I'm grateful for it because it helps me hopefully be a better support for our district and our teams as I learn more.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so what do you see as the secret sauce, so to speak, that makes Clovis Unified special compared to everybody else out there?
I'm glad you asked this. I haven't used secret sauce. Maybe I need to weave that into my interviews, but I do talk about what I think sets us apart. I've already covered some of them. One is the teamwork and trust, grounded in what's best for kids. And what's best for kids is setting high standards. And I always tell people wanting to join our team that the team you're asking to join does all three of those things. But what sets us apart is everybody is working really hard, pulling in the same direction for a positive outcome for our students. That's what gets me excited about our family. It's unique. You can go places and it's just a job. It's not a source of pride. Just look at our grounds. If you just look at what our grounds teams do so that our community, our staff, and our students can be proud of where they go. I mean, they put in endless hours. Went to the state track meet where we host the biggest show because so much work goes to get that place looking pristine at VMS. The last night, I'm leaving after helping watch and support cleanup at the state meet. And so we're getting out of there at about 11:30. And here are all the grounds waiting to come on to start turning it over at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, which is getting near a Sunday morning, to turn that stadium around for graduation. They take such pride in it. And you don't find that anywhere. That's one example. I could list examples everywhere, but you just don't find that everywhere. I think that's the secret sauce, is everyone pulling in the same direction with pride in the work they're doing. And I'm embarrassed to say, I've been at that state meet forever. Clearly, I didn't stay long enough to see that they do that. And that's a little bit, I think, of the continued learning in my role. Because what I've learned in the last 3 years is only more affirming of how special this place is and the privilege of working somewhere else. This is different. It's very special. And so I'm really hopeful that our teams and the people who join understand that this is unique and it's worth the effort to take care of.
Yeah, I agree. This place is unlike anywhere else, especially since if you've had a chance to work elsewhere and then coming here, it's not the same. Dr. Young has talked about our future, and she has shared that we're possibly less than a generation or a generation away from losing our core values unless we do something to maintain those. As you think about the future and you think about our students, what excites you the most?
We have a 7th grade student at Granite Ridge who's up in the top 50 for science experiments, a science fair across the nation. I couldn't even tell you half of what her project proposal is. What our kids are accomplishing is amazing. And that's what excites me. I feel privileged that our groups invite me into their classrooms, that I get to go check in with all of our staff at sites and departments and hear the great things that they're doing for kids. But then the best part is I get to meet with kids and hear their experiences and learn from them. And they're doing amazing things. I heard it in an interview of Doc one time where he talked about, I want our kids to go out in the nation, make a name for Clovis in the nation, in the world. And you think back then, 65 years ago, like that's a pretty bold statement when we weren't as networked as we are today. I got to think he would be proud to see what our students are accomplishing all over the place. I'm proud of them. But those things don't happen without our team. Our kids go see things that don't look at all like this. They'll go to colleges that don't have what this community, what this educational team, and the teams of before, and my hope and prayer is the teams to come, have offered them.
Yeah, and when you think about the accomplishments that our graduates are achieving, how do you feel about those that want to come back?
I think that's one of the greatest compliments. When I do interview people who want to come back to the district, for lack of a better word, to give back. They want to help continue to make this a great place. I wish I could interview them and have what they share with me captured for all of our staff. Because in education especially, there's not enough affirmation of hard work, in my opinion. There's just not enough affirmation of the selflessness that comes in our educational environment from every level of our organization and every job title. If they could hear those that are coming back and why they want to be here and how grateful they were for their journeys, I wish I could capture that for everyone. About 50% of our employees are Clovis Unified grads. About 50% come from other places. That's part of it. You call it secret sauce. That's a magic in the mixture because we get new innovative ideas from people who have different experiences but believe in our values. And then we get those who know the traditions of the culture, and we get to mix those to just make us better for each other and for our kids.
So speaking about our great teachers, what's one piece of advice that you'd want to give to a brand new teacher just starting out in our district?
You're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. At least I sure did. I had to learn very quickly. I don't know how it was for you, but I learned very quickly that sometimes I went, oh, we're going to scrap this. I'm going to have to come back to this tomorrow. So embrace the learn and the challenge. In those toughest times, we learn the most. It makes us better for the next group of kids in the future. The other thing I would share is I was probably about 4 years into teaching or so, and I felt really great teaching a math lesson on geometric proofs. So your first one's always rough. Your second period's get a little better. You get more efficient by third period. I was like, oh, I've got it. I felt so good about delivery. Got head nods, notes taken, feeling good. And I get my ticket out the door. And I got like 37 kids in there, and 5 got the answer right. And that was hard. We talked about the failures, and the easy thing could have said they weren't paying attention and put it on the students, but I would encourage a new teacher to always be reflective. At that moment, I had to go, I could feel great, but if the students aren't evidencing learning, did I really teach it? And the minute I flipped the script from being defensive and just thinking through, gosh, maybe it doesn't work for every kid, it doesn't work for every class, every group has different dynamics, I started to really see leaps and bounds in growth in what my students were demonstrating. But what I didn't realize is they were demonstrating more because they were helping challenge me to be better in my trade and be more reflective. But there were a lot of failures. And I think when we're new teachers, we want to have control. We want it to go perfect. And it just doesn't always go perfect. And it's okay.
All right, Dr. Folmer, final question, and thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories. So what do you hope people listening to this podcast will take away knowing more about you as their superintendent?
Oh, that's a good question. We had a theme last year, building on the legacy. What's the legacy? What's the moment in time you want to live? I just think we have some people in our organization that sometimes I believe may not feel seen. And the jobs are hard. Working with kids is hard. They're sometimes dealing with the most intense behaviors. I would hope that they know that they're really important to me. I want them to know that they're important. I want them to know they are seen. I want them to know I'm really important to me. Proud of them. They're incredible.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing from someone who makes CUSD a special place for students and families. This podcast is dedicated to every classified and certificated employee who shows up each day to enrich students' lives and help them be their best in mind, body, and spirit. We'll see you next time on the Doc B Podcast. As Doc always said,
don't ever forget our motto, sickle.